Here is a review of Aristotle and Aristotle's virtue ethics. Okay? First thing about Aristotle is that he maintained that all things have a goal or a purpose for which they strive, and that goal or purpose for which all things strive is called the telos. And he believed that the telos of humanity was happiness. It's the one thing that we seek for itself and not for any other reason. All right, so the telos of humanity is happiness. Now, there are some things that make some people happy and not others. Like some people may like fishing, other people may like shopping or hiking in the woods or running or something like that. So there are some things that make some people happy and not other people happy. But as Aristotle observed humanity, he saw that there was one thing that seemed to make all human beings happy, and that was leading a virtuous life. So for Aristotle, the telos of humanity is happiness, and the most sure path to reaching that telos or that happiness in life is by leading a virtuous life. Right? So as he looked at people, he saw that most people had a fairly stable character or a way that they acted most of the time, and so he wondered how a person could change their character or become more virtuous so that they would be more happy. And as he observed humanity, he saw that that humans are a combination of their appetitive nature and their rational nature. Their appetitive nature is the emotions and desires that they're born with, that they experience every day. So some people might be some people might have a real short temper and get angry a lot, or other people might be real high-strung and always always up and on the go, and other people will be real quiet, and then we all struggle with certain with certain sins too that are part of our appetitive nature, whether those sins are pride or gluttony or lust or anger, or any of those kinds of things. We struggle with those things. They're part of our appetitive nature or our emotions and desires. All right. However, our character is formed by allowing our rational nature or our thought processes to control our appetitive nature. So everyone has emotions and desires that are both good or profitable or virtuous, and emotions and desires that are not good, not profitable, not virtuous, that will lead us to sin. And in as much as our rational nature controls our appetitive nature, we can decide to act on our appetitive nature when it's a good idea and not act on our appetitive nature when it's not a good idea. So that's the relationship between our rational appetitive parts. In order for us to become virtuous, we have to allow our rational nature to take charge of our appetitive nature. And Aristotle taught that the more your rational nature is in control of your appetitive nature, the more free you are, because people who can't control themselves are not free. They become slaves to whatever their behavior is, and whatever the results of their behavior become just inevitable and something they can't control. But if your rational nature is in control of your appetitive nature, then you have that under control, and you can change your character. You can go from being a person who's angry all the time to actually controlling your anger and only getting angry when it would be helpful, or a virtuous thing, righteous anger. So we as human beings need to have our rational nature get in control of our appetitive nature, or our mind get in control of our emotions, if you will. Okay. In working on this, Aristotle saw 4 types of characters. The bottom one is the vicious or the vicious character. This person is not in control of their rational nature at all. As a matter of fact, Aristotle thought they were a hopeless case. They're not in control of their rational nature in the slightest, and so they just act on their emotions and desires all of the time, and they have no control over themselves. All right. The next step above that is the person who is incontinent. An incontinent person knows right and wrong, knows good and evil, but is very weak and is just unable to control it. They try, but they're just unable to control their appetitive nature. We move from being incontinent to being continent. When you're a person who's continent, knows the difference between good and evil and has to struggle in order to do what's good. So they have such a bad habit of acting on their emotions and desires that they have to struggle all the time, that it's a big struggle for them to act rationally and not on their repetitive nature. So they are continent, but it's something that they have to work on all the time. Now, what Aristotle taught is if a person is continent for long enough and keeps working on being in control of something, some appetitive part of their nature that they need to get under control, they will eventually succeed and control it, and they will actually change their nature or their character at that time because they will become virtuous. And at the point when you become virtuous, those virtues become second nature to you, and you don't have to struggle with them all the time. So as you look at those 4 character types, you can look at that really with any sin that we're struggling with. When a person is struggling with a particular sin, first they've done it so often that they're unaware of it, and then they become aware of it, but as they're aware of it, they're too weak to really change their nature. So first they're unaware of it, then they, the vicious person, then they become aware of it, incontinent, but they're too weak to change it. Then they decide, no, I'm really going to work on this, I'm going to change it, and they move to the continent where they are struggling all the time to do what is right and what is good. And then, but if they struggle long enough, psychologists say if they struggle for about 40 days, like the time that it takes to get through Lent, you will eventually own the virtue, and then it will become second nature to you, and then you no longer have to struggle. As a matter of fact, you would have to struggle to do what is wrong because you have trained yourself to do what is right. So really, the psychology of virtue ethics is we become virtuous by doing virtuous things. So we continue to do virtuous things over and over again till they become our new habit. So when we have a habit of not being virtuous, we can change that habit of not being virtuous by struggling to do what is right all of the time. And as we struggle to do what is right all the time, we grow in virtue, and eventually we own that virtue, and we don't have to struggle to do what's right. We naturally do what's right. It becomes part of our nature, and that's virtue ethics. Virtue ethics is a process of becoming a better person all the time. So when we're using virtue ethics to solve a moral dilemma, what we're going to do is we're going to look at the act. What is the dilemma that the person is struggling with? And we're going to ask ourselves, if the person acts in one way, it will bring on certain virtues and certain vices that will be good in their lives, that will help them out in their lives. If they act another way, it will bring on different virtues and different vices. So virtue ethics is always interested in the long-term character development. For example, if you go out somewhere and you lie to your parents about where you're going, all right? If you lie, the problem with that is it's teaching you, first of all, it's teaching you that you are not obligated to tell the truth. It's teaching you to say whatever it takes to do what you want, to get what you want. It's teaching you to take the easy way out. It's teaching you to be irresponsible. It's teaching you that you don't have to respect your parents, and all those kinds of things. If you continually teach yourself those vices, is not going to lead you to have a virtuous or exemplary life. It's not going to work out well for you. Whereas if you strive to always be honest to your parents, you are teaching yourself the virtues of integrity and honesty and respect for your parents and respect for rules and laws that have been set into place. And being a person of integrity and honesty and respect and someone who follows laws as opposed to finding some way around them will eventually lead you to a greater happiness in life because of your character than you would be led to if you turned into a liar. All right, so that's how you use virtue ethics to figure out a moral dilemma. It's not about long-term consequences of our actions. It's about long-term character development. What will improve our integrity? What will improve our character? What virtues will we gain by acting in a particular way? And what vices will we own by acting in the other way? Okay?